regular board meeting of the GCC ISD Board of Trustees to order at 6:02 p.m. Mrs. Barat-Timms, was the meeting properly posted?
Yes, it was.
And do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Dr. Bollinger?
Okay. Good evening, President Guy, Board of Trustees, Dr. O'Brien, and also members in the audience. We'll begin tonight's board meeting with a prayer led by Tiffany Guy. So at this time, please stand. Your time is up.
You used to talk about me with my phone. Oh, hey, look. Now look at it. Yeah, I know. It's the one that's going to let us put it.
Okay. Lord, thank you for getting everyone here safely tonight. Please guide us in decision making so we're making decisions in the best interest of our students and community. Also, please keep our staff and students safe in any travels they may have this summer. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right. Please remain standing. Jim Campese will lead us in the pledges.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. You may be seated, and we do not have any recognitions tonight, so I'll turn it over to Dr. O'Brien.
Thank you. And it looks like we do have one citizens participation, Ms. Kostick. Citizens participation is the time that the board will hear public concerns. I cannot speak tonight, Joe, I'm sorry. Or public comments from those who have properly signed up to address the board. At regular board meetings, the board shall permit public comment regardless of whether the topic is an item on the agenda posted with notice of the meeting. At all other board meetings, public comment shall be limited to open session items on the agenda posted with notice of the meeting. Each speaker is reminded that he or she is limited to his or her presentation to a maximum of 3 minutes, and that he or she should respect confidentiality concerns and refrain from attacking the personal character of any individual student, staff member, or board member in addressing concerns or comments. Pursuant to state law and board policy be illegal, the board cannot consider or take action on concerns at this meeting unless they pertain to an item on the posted agenda for this meeting. Any deliberation or decision on an item that is not posted for consideration at this meeting shall be limited to a proposal to place the subject on the agenda of a future meeting. All right, Ms. Kostick. Ms. Barat-Timms will time you and let you know when you have a minute.
All right. Good evening, members of the board, President Guy and Dr. O'Brien. While reviewing the agenda this evening, the Code of Conduct, you will review that it gives an overview of the bullying definition that excludes the district that excludes single significant act. This can be very confusing because the law is very clear. What is also noticeable is the disciplinary measures for bullying. Although it may not disrupt a school day the way an assault or a fight does, it does definitely disrupt a student's life. Suicide is the third leading cause of death among young people, resulting in about 4,000 deaths, 4,400 deaths per year, according to the CDC. For every suicide among young people, there is at least 100 suicide attempts. Bullying victims are between 2 to 9 times more likely to consider suicide than non-victims, according to studies by the Yale University. A study in Britain found that at least half of suicides among young people were related to bullying. According to statistics reported by ABC News, nearly 30% of students are either bullies or victims of bullying, and 160,000 kids stay home from school every day because of the fear of bullying. I would think that this would be addressed more aggressively in our disciplinary measures. This is playing with a child's life, and I know that all too well. From the money aspect, despite the article in the paper, our district is operating at a slippery slope, and it's not sustainable. Statistically, if kids stay home, addressing bullying more aggressively would inadvertently assist with our ADA and the number of parents that pull their children from Goose Creek schools. Just some things for you to think about when you are listening to the presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kostick. Okay, now we are to number 4, approval of minutes for the June 17th regular board meeting.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Campisi, a second by Mr. Sampson. Is there any discussion? Okay, with no discussion, all in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed and any abstentions? I have 6 for, 1 abstention. Motion passes. Okay, and now we will we'll recess into a closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Sections 551.071 and 551.074. No action will be taken while the board is in closed session. That's 6:09. Convene into open session at 6:52. And now we will take nominations for president to take effect at the close of this meeting tonight. Do we have any nominations?
I nominate Miss Helen Barat Timms.
Second.
Any other nominations,
President.
Okay. All in favor?
Nominations.
I just asked.
Okay,
I just asked, yes. All in favor, raise your hand.
Yep.
7 for, 0 against. Motion passes.
You should vote for yourself.
I have to vote.
Make sure and take a picture.
Okay. Do I have nominations for vice president?
I nominate Tiffany Guy to serve as vice president.
Any other nominations? All in favor, raise your hand. Oh, second. Do I need a second for that?
Second.
Okay. Do I have a second? Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Campisi, a second by Mrs. Barat Timms. All in favor, raise your hand. We have 7 for, 0 against. Motion passes. Any nominations for secretary?
I nominate Mr. Capizio. Jim?
Any other nominations? Okay, I have a motion by Mrs. Barat Timms, a second by Mr. Renteria. All in favor, raise your hand. We have 7 for, 0 against. Motion passes. And then we have assistant secretary. Any nominations for assistant secretary?
I nominate Mercedes Renteria for assistant secretary.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Campisi, a second by Mr. Sampson. Any other nominations? All in favor, raise your hand. Any no? And abstentions. We have 6 for, 1 abstention. Motion passes. Okay. Oh. Oh, yes. Just a reminder that it goes into effect at the end of the close of this meeting. Okay, discussion items. We have some superintendent reports.
Yes, ma'am, we do. We have superintendent's report, student code of conduct, which will be followed by student advocacy and strategic plan, followed by ABM update on efficiency.
Okay, good evening, Board of Trustees. We want to provide an overview of the Code of Conduct on specific disciplinary incidents related to conflict. We're presenting this for two reasons. One is because in the last presentation it was requested to go a little bit deeper in specific scenarios, so we're going to attempt to do that tonight. Also, the board will be voting on the 24-25 Student Code of Conduct, so that's a requirement each year, and so this presentation aligns to that requirement. So just to start off, what we wanted to do was just to go through some goals and outcomes of the Code of Conduct and just disciplinary practices in general. And so the first point that we wanted to make was that, bottom line is we want schools to be a safe place to learn. You know, I have 3 kids myself, and I know that when I send my students, my children to school, that the expectation is that it's a safe building, that it's a safe, the classrooms are safe, the halls are safe, and when that's jeopardized, then I think that parents have concerns, and they're worried about that. And so as a school district, we want to make sure we're doing all we can to provide a safe environment. In today's climate, we know that tends to be more of a challenge, not only with social media, but just with things that happen in our nation that threaten school safety. And so we have many things in place with our administrators, with our teachers, with our police department, with everything that we allocate time and resources to provide safety for our students. That's the number one priority. The second thing is we want to make sure that our schools are responsive to students and parents. And so I know that often whenever we receive complaints at the district level, sometimes we'll have parents come to board meetings. This hasn't happened recently, knock on wood, but we've had instances where parents come and complain that the school has not been responsive to their concerns, and so that they have a plea, they have a cry for help. And it's our goal to make sure that our schools are responsive. So if a parent, we may not agree with the circumstance or the scenario or the situation, depending on what happens, but it's our school's duty, it's our district's duty to be responsive. And so that's another priority when it comes to the Code of Conduct and addressing concerns. And then the last piece we wanted to, or the last goal or outcome, is to make sure that we're fair and consistent. And so we know that if you've ever been an assistant principal or an administrator, disciplinary incidents can be very complicated. It can be, our APs spend countless hours throughout the school year doing investigations, figuring out, if there's fault, whose fault it is, what happened, what initiated the incident. And this is hard work, and it's not always black and white or cut and dry. And so as much as possible, though, we want to make sure that our administrators are consistent with how we do investigations, that we're consistent with how we administer discipline, that we're objective, and that we follow our disciplinary matrix. And so if we can take care of those 3 outcomes, we feel like we're moving in the right direction. And so again, tonight we want to present some specific scenarios that relate to discipline and student conflict to delineate how each incident may be treated depending on the circumstance. Also, we want to make connections with the strategic plan. The next presentation is on the strategic plan, but school safety, student safety is a big part of that strategic plan, so we want to make that connection. And then also what we want to do is provide some real-world scenarios that show each incident and then how that may be addressed by schools. Okay, Kendall.
Okay, so like Dr. Bollinger said, we are going to dive into the strategic plan in the next presentation. But for the purpose of this presentation, if you're asking the question, do we monitor school safety and student discipline in the strategic plan? The answer is yes. It's monitored under the operational excellence goal, and the target is to provide a safe and secure environment conducive to learning. And so what we measure when we're looking at operational excellence and then this specific target is we look at social and emotional learning survey data to really understand the student in our campus, what problems are they experiencing, what issues are they having, what are their perceptions of their student life. We use that data in a lot of different committees. We have it broken down by campus. So our campuses are able to use that data and make adjustments at their campus as well as us as a district. We also monitor specific safety and security incidents to determine if we're having a decrease or increase, and those include PIMS codes that we have identified as safety and security major threats. So firearms, illegal knives, assault, terroristic threat, we monitor those on a year-to-year basis to evaluate the safety of our campuses. And then last, we look at safety drills. Are we conducting enough safety drills so that we're being proactive? And then what professional development are we providing to ensure that our campuses are equipped to deal with any safety and security incidents?
All right, so when we look at different definitions, when we're looking at our code of conduct, and we're evaluating an incident that can occur among students, there's 4 different things that we usually look at. One is a student being rude, inadvertently saying something that can hurt someone else's feelings. That can also happen among adults. If someone is being mean, purposefully saying or doing something to hurt someone, maybe 1 or 2 times. If there's conflict, 2 people or groups disagree, and that disagreement can cause friction among those students or among those groups of students. And then bullying. This is obviously a modified version of the actual definition, which I will say in a minute. Intentionally aggressive behavior that involves an imbalance of power, that it can include physical, verbal, relational. You can have 2 cousins that are in, the same grade level that don't get along, and it can move into school, not just outside of school. Cyberbullying. The key elements there would be intent to harm, power imbalance, and repeated acts or threats. Now, that doesn't mean that someone being rude couldn't be bullying. It doesn't mean that someone couldn't be mean and doing bullying, or even conflict can be bullying, but you have to investigate each incident depending on the circumstance. So when we look at the different types of incidences related to conflict, we're going to start with bullying, as Dr. Bollinger said, and I've actually pulled actual discipline referral incidents. We've changed the names, which you'll relate to those names in a moment. Verbal conflict would be kind of the next step. To me, it's kind of lower on the totem pole because that's usually just 2 people getting into it. Physical confrontation, pushing, shoving, fighting, and then, of course, assaults. So, our first situation, what is bullying? Bullying is defined as a single significant act or a pattern of acts directed at another student that is written or verbal, cyberbullying or physical contact that exploits an imbalance of power and interferes with a student's education or substantially disrupts the operation of a school. And either one has the effect or will have the effect of physically harming a student, damaging their property, or placing them in reasonable fear of harm to their person or damage to their property. 2, sufficiently severe, persistent, and pervasive enough that the action or threat creates an intimidating, threatening, or abusive educational environment for that student. 3, if the behavior materially and substantially disrupts the educational process or the orderly operation of a classroom or the school. And last, or infringes on the rights of the victim at school. So here were 2 different scenarios. 1, Kevin allegedly is spreading fake rumors about Anthony, but then Kevin pushed Anthony off the slide at recess. On the bus ride home, Kevin poured water on Anthony as he was exiting the bus. Kevin sent Anthony a Snapchat message that he was going to hit him the next day when they got to school. And I can tell you on the first incident to look in the investigation, you're going to have to find out what those rumors were. Who said that they heard that those rumors, what was said. So again, that's an investigation that has to go into. On the scenario 2, you've got 3 significant incidences where you've got Kevin pushing Anthony off the slide. Then on the ride home, after he pushed him, he poured water on him. Then after he did that night, he sent him a Snapchat message. And that would be a substantiated bullying investigation. Now, as far as consequences, we go the wide range, depending on the nature of it. You can obviously, anytime we have an investigation, it's going to be a student-parent conference. Both students are called, both parents are called of each student. a counselor referral, so that if there is this rumor that was spread, why were you, did you not, why did you think he did, were y'all friends, not friends, so the counselor can get involved so that they can discuss and hopefully work out their differences. Lunch detentions, either or after school detentions. Depending on the severity, it can move up to ISS, out of school suspension, and then obviously our severe bullying situations, may it be cyber or in person, can be sent to our district alternative placement.
So on the definition, is that
Yes.
one whole definition, or
Yes.
is it three separate?
No, that is the entire, that's the definition
versions.
of bullying. Yes, sir.
Are the consequences in order?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
No, sir, because depending again on the severity. Now the student parent conference, yes, sir, that's an automatic. The counsel referral is an automatic. But then depending on the severity, we might go straight to out of school suspension with a DAEP placement.
Okay,
It just
great.
depends. And it also depends on the grade level. If we've got, a second grader compared to a sophomore, we're going to obviously look at the.
I just wanted to make sure there was some rehabilitational
Yes.
efforts instead of
Yes.
just punitive like
Yes.
ISS or.
And I can say even with the lower level, say it was just a parent-student conference, maybe it was the two cousins. So we brought the families in and were like, hey, I understand there's some stuff going on outside, but we need to work on it here at school. That could be a lot of counselor intervention, like you said. Sometimes also with the lunch detentions or after school, depending on the severity, we issue stay-away agreements. So look, if obviously you and Anthony and Kevin cannot get along, so I tell you what, y'all don't sit next to each other in lunch. If you're in class together, you sit on this side of the room, you sit on this side of the room. We don't have group activities together. Let's give y'all some space and make sure. And then, of course, we monitor those stay-away agreements even outside of school so that they don't contact.
So teachers are involved in that
Yes, sir.
stay-away agreement?
Yes, sir. Yes.
And Mr. Martinez, I'm really glad you brought that up because one of the things we were discussing earlier is that it's continuous in terms of addressing situations like this. So teachers are trained and going to have efforts in their classroom, counselors, student support administrators as a whole. So it's a collective effort to address bullying or any other type of conflict.
Okay, so again, we're given different scenarios or incidents related to student conflict. And so another type of conflict is verbal conflict. So the definition, and we're following the same format for each scenario. So we're given the definition, then a scenario, and then possible consequences. So the definition is verbal conflict is a verbal argument that usually comes from anger or rage. And so the scenario, I've got the two perpetrators up here. Carrie and Kendall were in a verbal conflict during lunch over pictures that were taken at a party this weekend. As Carrie was on her way out to the cafeteria, Kendall stopped her and asked her about the pictures. They exchanged words, and the argument began to escalate, but prior to any physical confrontation, the girls were separated. And so often in schools, we see verbal conflict where it can be where it's headed towards a fight, but it may not get there. Hopefully there's adult or peer intervention before it gets to that point, or hopefully the students self-monitor and walk away from it. And so possible consequences, and you're going to see a similar pattern here, but it's depending on the severity of the incident, it could be a student-parent conference, it could be lunch detention, it could be a counselor referral. If it's an extreme disruption to the school day, then the consequences would also be more severe. If it was let's say it was in the cafeteria and it was a shouting match that caused many adults and security to come to that scene, and profanity was used throughout that shouting match, then that may require a more severe consequence depending on that incident. And so again, the assistant principal plays a role in doing the investigation and then doing their best to administer that consequence in a fair and consistent manner. Well, it's Goose Creek's police for the most part for us, and they're involved whenever there's a criminal act. So typically, if it was a verbal conflict, this would be the school administrator in this case. If our security is on the scene and they need to help, separate the students, or if our police are on the scene and they can play a role in that. But typically it's our administrators who would, or our teachers on duty who would intervene in this case. Right, and that's coming in another scenario. So, but they haven't gotten there yet.
Not me.
I'm just asking. Y'all used them, so I'm going to use them too.
Okay, so what is physical confrontation / pushing and shoving? So physical confrontation is a dispute between two or more people that can escalate into physical contact. Pushing and shoving is defined as a dispute between two or more people that result in one or more people pushing others. So here's a scenario for physical confrontation. Matt walked by Kevin in class and intentionally tripped him. Pushing and shoving, so the physical confrontation, the act happened, he was tripped, your body was on another individual, but it did not escalate into a fight. Pushing and shoving, Anthony pushed Randy into the wall in the cafeteria, Randy pushed Anthony back, and the teacher separated them. So in these instances, same type of matrix in regards to the consequence. Student-parent conference is a given for each. And then, again, depending on the severity of the situation, lunch attention, partial day ISS, ISS, OSS. Again, depending on the nature of the situation and, the investigation and what caused it. Has it happened before? Is there a conflict that occurred? Is it horseplay? Whatever the case may be, determining the consequence for the scenario.
When would we involve a counselor? Isn't that a practice, like to get counselors involved when there's, when would we do that?
Typically, in any type of situation that we feel like it's going to be ongoing, or we feel like it is a aggression that is typical of that student or caused by another outside factor, we would involve a counselor referral in that. All of our campuses have student support teams that discuss students with consistent issues with behavior, with attendance, with grades. And so dozens of students are brought to that student support team pretty consistently.
So a student support team consists of what?
Administrators, counselors. It's a group of individuals that are brought together. Lead teachers brought together to discuss students on campus.
On the consequences, you've all mentioned it depends on the severity. Is there a rubric, or how do we remain consistent across the district?
That would be our discipline matrix that we started last year, which I believe I presented earlier this year as far as showing the pattern. So we actually have a discipline matrix. I have one for the elementary level, one for the junior high level, and one for the high school level that has the various degrees of incidences, conflicts, from bus conduct down to being tardy. First offense, second offense, third offense. And it goes through on a matrix. And so we meet. We started this again for this school year. And the APs at our meeting, we sat down, we reviewed what they felt, we reevaluated it. For the upcoming year, we made some adjustments where they felt like, well, you know what, this was too much for this incident, but maybe not enough for this type of incident. So we've made some adjustments this year, which has allowed us to be more consistent across all the campuses. So the student at Lee High School is not getting something different than the student at Sterling High School.
Good. I think you've already answered this question indirectly, but what about things that are in the gray area? Do assistant principals ever have a chance to come sit in these meetings and say, hey, I found one that goes in this crack. Here's what happened. What would everybody else do?
I'll be honest with you, on those type situations.
Or does that come to you?
That comes to me.
Okay.
When there's a gray area, I really feel like I've built a very good rapport with our administrators, principals, as well as APs and SSAs. And if there's any gray area, they'll actually call me and we work through the whole scenario. We have a shared drive that has all of the videos on it. They upload those videos. We will actually watch them. Thank goodness for sharing of screens these days. Yep. So we will watch the video together. They identify the students for me, and we can have a discussion on what we see, what they see. And in your situation, you asked about law enforcement. Okay, I'll ask sometimes, okay, was your officer involved in this due to the nature of this, or did this happen because of this? And that goes from elementary up to the high school level.
Good.
Even our bus videos, to be honest with you, we've reviewed a lot of bus videos as well.
So, just for verbiage on there?
Yes.
The single significant act, where does that fall? Or does it?
Again, it would be part of that investigation. That could be review a video. That could be, I mean, like on this situation, Kevin pushed Anthony on the slide. So Kevin came and told the assistant principal, Anthony just pushed me off the slide. Yeah. Okay, we'll have a conversation. They have a conversation. Well, then on the ride home, he poured water on Anthony. So now we get the bus video. I say we, but the assistant principal, we review. We've got clear evidence. He's sitting there and he's pouring water on him. And well, then the next morning, mom shows up and we have the Snapchat message showing that here's the message that was sent to him last night. So you've got, I mean, I know but it's, to me, this would have been, I know it doesn't sound like it, but single significant act. It's still one act. It's just he did 3 different things in this one incident, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. I was just trying to figure out what you meant by that.
Excuse me. Do we have any type of student-on-student disciplinary type situation? In other words, students who kind of, I've seen this before where you got a student panel that look at some of these problems that certain kids are having, and they kind of a disciplinary type panel that work with the adults about certain kids or certain incidents that happen. In other words, it's just not adults. You have some kids involved. They may not be elementary kids, but 1 or 2 kids from secondary level that work with these panels to look at, is that illegal or not, for them to be able to sit in on this or either have the conversation with these 2 people or 3 or 4 people who have gotten in trouble and kind of clear the air without adults being in the room, or they are in the room with adults and they can kind of make a better understanding of their peers and the people they are dealing with, their age, in other words.
Sure.
Do we have anything like that?
Maybe not exactly what you're describing, but I mentioned earlier when we presented the strategic plan slide that we had student roundtables. Mrs. Guy, Mr. Campese were involved in the student roundtables that we conducted this year. We took the survey data that was taken from 3rd through 12th grade and pulled some of those questions out of that data and had a collaborative conversation with student-led student conversation at our district anti-bullying committee. And that's one of the ways that we get feedback from students about what's going on in their campus, their interpretation of different discipline, different activities that are occurring, and that provides a lot of insight for us, and that's the power of having those student roundtables. As far as a discipline panel, we don't have something specifically for discipline and giving specific incidents, but we do have lots of opportunities through the anti-bullying committee, through our surveys, and through student roundtables to get feedback from students.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering because, adults, doing this discipline thing to kids, sometimes kids can be harder on kids if they see that it's a pattern where, Johnny boy is jumping on Jerry boy, and they see the pattern going on in the school, and the kids would be from that particular school, not Sterling to Lee or whatever like that. You would have these people dealing with the counselors and everybody when they are doing a certain discipline towards kids. And maybe I'm just thinking outside the box, trying to.
That's not even legal, though.
Well, that's what I was trying to find out.
Not when you're talking specifics, but what I will say is at our district anti-bullying committee, when we did conduct the Socratic, the instructions were to take that back to the campus. And so that The Campus Anti-Bullying Committee consists of campus personnel as well as those specific campus students. And if that Socratic at those campuses went similar to the district anti-bullying committee, they probably got some very good feedback on campus-specific response and interpretation of the culture and climate at specific schools.
How do they pick these particular individuals for that anti-bullying, roundtable individuals? Are they picking, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, the top 4 kids in the school, or, you got or something?
Yeah, I think they just try to find a representative for each grade level, and they try to find a good representation for the school body. So not necessarily the top students, not necessarily the students who have a lot of challenges, but just a good, diverse representation of the school.
The teachers actually will recommend students.
It was a very diverse group of people.
Yes.
And Mr. Sampson, I'll go on to say that Ms. Guy and I did sit in on, I think it was 3 of them where we brought students in. Ms. Guy and I would strategically sit at different levels, so we were hearing from all of it. And the students, if they're ever going to tell their story, it's in an anti-bullying committee, and we learned a lot from it. The students really spoke freely, and they weren't afraid to say what needed to be said. And it was spoken well, and these students were energized, and they were really passionate about bringing these Socratics back to their individual schools and being tasked with assignments to take it on that venue as well. Me personally, sitting on there, I spent a lot of the time on the elementary side of it, and elementary students will talk to you. You just ask them a question, set them in a circle, and get them to speak freely, and they do. And I would venture to say that the principals that sat in that room learned a whole lot that they didn't hear on their campus. But when all these kids were brought together in one room for the sake of anti-bullying, they really spoke up, and they threw some curveballs that we didn't hear in the boardroom, but we heard it in that anti-bullying committee. And I thought it was a very good process.
Thank you.
I'm just throwing that curveball, because, I know a lot of these kids, and they'll say anything in the beginning, but when you want to really hear what's actually going on the campus, the administrators really have to dig deep into the heart of the campus. Some of the kids that you wouldn't expect, maybe some of the kids that are bullying. But I was just curious, what's the level can we have them involved in on some of these problems that we have from bullying and everything? It may be the person that's bullying people that, we may have to bring in and show them, hey, this is you, and that's just my, dealing with some kids. I ain't gonna say what I usually say, but with some kids. Yeah.
All right, so we have 2 more scenarios for you.
All right, so what is fighting? Fighting is 2 or more persons engaged in any mutual violent or physically aggressive contact toward each other, such as scuffling, pushing, shoving, or hitting. So the scenario is that Susan approached Karen in the hallway, asked if she was talking about her to her friends. They both began to exchange words aggressively, dropped their backpacks, and began hitting each other. I believe Susan did. So the consequences on this, I will tell you, are very straightforward. It's 3 days out of school suspension, or we can do 2 days out of school suspension, 1 day ISS, 1 day out of school suspension, 2 days ISS. And sometimes we will alternate. So Susan might go home for 2 days, and Karen only goes home for 1 day because she comes back, and then we alternate. So that way they're not in the same ISS room together, because if they didn't get along 3 days ago, they're not going to get along probably today. And then once things have settled down, again, we bring in counselors, we bring in the administrators. The parents have been contacted, obviously, in this situation as well. We bring in and figure out, what was this? Has there been an ongoing conflict, or is this something literally she was talking to her about her friends?
So when does an assault turn into a fight if someone's defending themselves?
So
I mean, how do we...
There is a very fine line, and law enforcement will tell you that, and depending on the district attorney you get, will also depend on if they deem it as a mutual fight or as a assault. So I can tell you in this situation, this is fighting. They're both hitting each other. Now, if Susan had punched Karen and knocked her to the ground, and Karen's trying to back away, pushed her, not hit her, but pushed her, trying to get her away, trying to get up, and Susan continues to hit, it could be deemed an assault at that point, because Karen was trying
finally hits back. Does that change everything?
Not if it's one hit, but
Okay.
if Karen then gets the better hand and decides. That's my point.
You don't know Karen, do you?
So in this situation, but then if you repeatedly begin to hit, then it no longer is an assault.
Some of us up here are old and we're taught to defend yourself.
Yes.
And this is hard to digest sometimes because, if I were cold-cocked and I'm supposed to just sit here and take it so I don't get in trouble too, I don't know that I could do that.
Right.
Because that's just not how we were brought up. So
Ricky's going to be Mercedes.
I'll just throw it out here because every parent in our district says self-defense. And how does that weigh in? Because you have the legal term of self-defense.
Right.
How does that weigh into our policies and our consequences and such? I think that's kind of what you're getting at, but no one wants to say it.
And I can say...
We have a right to defend ourselves.
Right, you do, to a point. And that's when, and this scenario has happened multiple times, we've had a fight, and then or it was an assault, but the district attorney, the parents coming in and saying, that was an assault, I want assault charges filed. Police officers already reviewed it and said, no, it's a mutual fight, but the parents adamant. They take it to the DA. DA reviews the video and says, no, that's a mutual fight. They end up usually in my office to review the video, and I would say 9 times out of 10, when the parent sees it, oh, well, he didn't say he hit 5 times. He said he got him off of him.
We always know that the story is different between the time it was in school and the time they get home.
Yes.
But there's a lot of kids that are being told that you just sit there and take it now because you're going to end up with 3 days OSS just by the policy here. But we inherently have a right to defend ourselves. Now, how does that weigh in when there's no video and such? Mr. Mercedes, I'll pick on you. He pushed me. I pushed him back. Y'all saw me push him. I defended myself. We weren't fighting. I mean, I would have been the same hitting him back. I defended myself, which I have an inherent right to do. However, now I'm...
Right. And I will say, and I understand there's not always videos, but I will also say 9 times out of 10 there is, because those cell phones, sometimes we get better videos from their cell phones than we ever do off of our cameras.
It's a very good point.
And they're quick to turn them over too. You didn't hit him, he hit him. I've got video to show it.
Right. And the reason why I bring these questions up is because those are the questions that come to us as trustees in the district.
Oh, of course.
Oh, please do.
Legal questions and stuff. Thank you. I couldn't help myself. I'm sorry. They're doing a great job.
I just sat with him at the law conference.
Yes, you did. On student discipline for the state, but anyway.
And I wasn't meaning to grill you. It's just these are the questions that really come up, and it's very confusing on what's bullying and self-defense.
First of all, self-defense is in the code of conduct for consideration. All of our assistant principals in Goose Creek are trained as one of the mitigating factors considered for any assignment to ISS or suspension or to the DAP. One of the factors they consider is self-defense. You're right, there's a great debate often on what self-defense is or is not. Parent often has a different view than the administrator. Ultimately, it's the administrator decision with reasonableness and looking at all the facts. The scenario of the one person pushing against the other, like the student swung and the student blocked it and pushed them away. Self-defense. The student swung, knocked him and pushed him away, then ran up and then kicked him 5 times. You have just shifted from defense to offense. The parent will say they were just trying to defend themselves. They took Taekwondo, which is a natural response. That is, but it's not from a legal standpoint. When you've moved into an offense, when you've sort of protected yourself, and then you move into an offensive mode, most of the decisions will say that you had self-defense. You had it for about the first 22 seconds.
I think the missing element here is in a parent teaching their child to defend themselves is that the follow-up says you have to be willing to accept the consequences, whatever they may be determined by the school district.
And what we find, unfortunately, is as has been shared in the illustrations, that many of them are mutual. And so there's verbal altercation that started in like, well, you gonna bring it? You're gonna, right. You know, and so it really does depend on the factual scenarios. And the assistant principals do a really good job, because I've reviewed a few with Ms. Smith along the way from a legal standpoint. And so it really is factual dependent. But you're right, there's a lot of viewpoint on, well, what's the role? I defended myself. And the answer is it really depends. Did you, and under what circumstance?
Everybody confused as to what self-defense is, even though you came up here. Because if my kid or anybody's kid is fighting with somebody, and that kid is going to defend himself or herself until that other person is neutralized and is not coming back. That's when you know you defended yourself.
Well, in the school context, that's actually not the legal analysis. In other words, I mean, I'm just reporting.
But then that's not self-defense.
I'm reporting.
I mean, if you're going to sit there and go, okay, don't hit me, don't hit me.
That's not what I said in my illustration. My illustration was the student gets pushed back to the ground, and then I go after them and then kick them 6 times in the head. That will not, at that kick number 6, kick number 5, kick number 4 are not going to constitute self-defense. Right. You may argue it. I would just tell you that for most cases, rulings from both the courts and administrative determinations, they would strongly suggest that shifted in the midst of it. It is factual dependent. I could create a scenario where the student got knocked to the ground and then grabbed something and was coming back after the student. There's all kinds of things. But overall, it's the main point on behalf of the administration is self-defense is considered as one of the mitigating factors. It's actually written in your code of conduct. And it's reasonableness of the administrator in evaluating the facts is kind of how it plays out legally.
And my point was that I wanted that to be said for our viewers that will actually tune into this but not read that code of conduct. We do consider it as a school district.
If I may.
Thank you. All right, turning back to y'all. Scenario.
I am still a substitute teacher, not in this district, obviously, but I'm still a substitute teacher. And a lot of school environments are they sort of promote this fight back instance, because when a student tells a teacher that somebody is pushing them, the teacher will either report that, and then they'll send the child to the office, and the child gets sent back because it was, it was aggression, but it wasn't bullying per se. So it sort of elevates to that point. And I think we all just need to make sure that we're taking, especially something like physical contact, as serious as possible. And your first instinct maybe shouldn't be to fight back per se, but tell an adult and promote an environment where the adult listens and takes it as a serious threat to the child's safety.
And I feel like, Mr. Martinez, we do. And I'll commend our administrators. They do a really good job in building relationships with kids. And I feel confident Mr. Clem will back me on this. When I was an administrator, I had relationships with my kids. Very, very good relationships. And I will tell you, they knew that if they got in a verbal conflict, they got in a fight, they knew what the consequences were going to be. But they also knew they were coming into my office. And I could have 2 kids that were just at each other. And I could have them both sitting in my office. They knew if they messed up while they were in there, somebody was going down. But, I mean, and they knew. Mr. Clem's laughing, but they knew that. But I will tell you, before I sent them home, we worked out what that problem was. Because I told them, when you come back, it's not going to happen again. And we do our best to work with students in working out those conflicts. Now, sometimes I'm not going to lie, you can't. There is just, may it be family, may it be relational, may it be just a neighborhood, like parents could have gotten into it and it's brought all the way down for generations to the kids. And sometimes you can't fix it. But we do our best to answer like what Mr. Sampson did. We do our best to try to resolve those conflicts so that, because especially if they're in 5th grade, they're going to go all the way to high school. You got to learn to live with each other. We work with people every day that you might not necessarily like, but you still have to be professional and get along. So we're trying to instill and educate kids on their behaviors. We want to teach them how to behave in situations when they don't necessarily learn it at home. And so sometimes we have to be the ones to teach them.
On that point, in ISS, do we assign the students maybe some behavioral work that they can do at their desk, like reading material to help regulate their emotions or their behavior?
Actually, usually when they're sent to ISS, that's when our counselor will pull them out and have those conversations.
Well, ISS is an entire day of the student just sitting at a desk, so...
Not always.
Well, not always, yeah.
Right.
But there is a lot of that, so
right.
we need to make sure that we're maybe assigning them some work that they can read to help
Social
them
lessons.
Figure it out. Yeah.
Yes, sir. We do that at the elementary level for sure.
Okay, we should maybe do that on every level.
Well, at the older ones, they don't necessarily.
Where do you draw the line as to what is self-defense? It's lost. It's lost because once that kid, wherever he or she may be, once they move to defend themselves, there's no bullying anymore. I can tell you that just by listening to y'all. They're gonna get into it, and then the kid that was being bullied is not not being bullied anymore because he or she's defending themselves. That's what we're losing. In my opinion, that's what we're losing. Like you said, legally, if that kid hits that kid and and he deserved it or she deserved it because she was bullied. But then again, legally it's not something that he or she deserved. You cross the line by going the other way and beating their butt is what happened. They get their butt beat because they were bullied.
Well, then
the law protects them.
Then we have a circle of violence here. We have a circle of violence where if someone hits someone else, they get hit back.
Yeah, I mean, it really does depend on the circumstances from analysis on how the students. I mean, part of the things that are being encouraged and taught is how to handle situations, how to remove themselves from situations, how to inform an adult instead of duking it out. But there are going to be natural responses of someone if they're attacked. They're going to respond in that fashion. And again, but ultimately you have to analyze, what's the degree of that response? Is it proportionate, if you will? And that, in my illustration, was disproportionate. It got pushed, and then the student continued to kick the student 6 and 7 times. That would be that's somewhat of an easier one, if you will. So, but that's where your administrative experience and what the factual circumstances are, board members, ultimately, make the determination. But the considerations there, and it will vary, but it is an education environment where you are working not only to try to keep a safe environment, which is a priority that was outlined in the presentation, but it's also a teaching environment, right? You're trying to support and teach students how to better respond to circumstances, and that's where the counselor role, that's where the different supports come in, and that's also how an administrator with relationship can really support someone, even if they feel like they're the victim or they feel like he got what he deserved and all that in between.
Right. I just wanted to clarify that fighting back is still the circle of violence. You're just going to continue that cycle until
you have to intervene on it.
Yeah, until you intervene. So fighting back is not always the best solution. Right. Telling a teacher and a teacher who will listen and take the appropriate action is the correct action. I know they're students, So there's going to be natural conflict, but we have to teach them.
But as a parent, you're going to tell your kid, defend yourself. That's just the bottom line. You're going to tell, don't let nobody put their hands on you. Don't let nobody beat you. And they're going to defend themselves. When you're a parent, you care about your kid so much, you're not going to go, oh, well, be sure, sure you'll go tell somebody, but maybe sometimes you're not going to have that opportunity. You just got to throw hands. Like, I'll give you, for instance, when we used to ride school from here to Old Baytown, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to have 2 or 3 fights on that bus. And when you got off, you're going to have fights. It's just the way it is. And, in the lower economic neighborhoods or impoverished neighborhoods, that's just the way it is. You're going to have to fight your way through there sometime. And, and the sad part about it is they come back, they get in trouble for it. And they go to SAC or ISS, like he said, or, we used to get licks back in the day. I had my fair share of licks, I can tell you that. It worked, too.
I think the thing that we're all witnessing is that this is very complex.
Yes.
And it takes a lot of different modes of, coming at student discipline and code of conduct. And that was really the purpose of the scenarios. Is everyone sitting up here has served as a campus administrator. And it is complex. It's not cut and dry. It's not, here's the incident, here's the investigation, here's the consequence, and we're done. All of us sitting up here, we have kids that we've worked with for 3, 4, 5 years on repeat offenses and their own situations. And so I think that's the important thing to note, is that our administrators, our counselors, our teachers are consistently working with each individual student and each individual conflict as a progression to teach students the way to act in a society.
And I get it. I can't speak for them, but I get it. When Kim was up here addressing bullying and how people commit suicide and don't want to come to school, that's really important. You heard her voice shake up because it's a fact that happens, and I just get worried because, and that's why we drill this situation so much. It's not so much you guys, but the fact that these kids are getting bullied and and then they don't want to come to school, and it gets in the way of their education because they don't want to come back. That's why you got a lot of dropouts too. They don't want to come back because they know they're going to have to fight their way. Just telling the teacher or telling the principal who thinks she's making headway, those students will go up to her and go, oh, yeah, I hear you. But when they go out that door and they're going home, they're like, hold up, I still got, that didn't help me none there.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, like I said, it's very complex.
Yes, and I appreciate that Kim Kostek addressed that, because again, the bullying committee is very, very important as to the education of our children here, and that's why I'm bringing that up right there like that.
And I'll just add one more piece. That's why, addressing conflict is a lifelong lesson. And we're once you get out of high school, you don't stop conflict. You constantly have conflict that you have to handle. And so teaching our kids how to de-escalate, how to cope, how to not become violent in the process is a big life skill. The investigation that our assistant principals do is paramount. It's extremely important that they do the investigation well. And I would say that 99 times out of 100, they get it right. And when they don't get it right, we have an appeal process where a parent feels like their child wasn't treated correctly. Then we go through the appeal process to make sure that they have a voice, and we address that in a consistent manner as possible. I would say a lot of fights happen aren't bullying.
That's a pretty high percentage you just named off. 99%
I
of
would
100.
I would say very few fights reach the grievance process, and I would back that up with our data. And I would say there's a lot of fights.
I could say 50-50, maybe, but
well, I think we'd see a lot more complaints if that were the case.
I get it. No, but
yeah, I'm not saying they're happy with it, but
right.
I'm saying that what the investigation revealed, both sides could live with.
Right.
But I would say that there's a lot of fights that aren't bully related. A lot of times it's verbal conflict that does not de-escalate, and as a result, it leads to a fight. And then sometimes it is bullying, and so our assistant principals have to figure out what best fits that definition. We have one more scenario for you, and then we'll wrap it up. So
It's the last one. So
Smith will hit this one.
Well, you only need 13 more minutes.
Yeah.
what? I get the trophy? No.
Can I say
Sorry.
one quick thing, and we can get off of this subject? One important factor, I think is the most important factor, is kids on a campus have to have confidence in your counselors, your administrators, and things of that nature in order to be able to come to them with the problem they're having and know that someone is going to look into it and not just flake them off.
Right.
And that's the most important factor.
Definitely.
That's
Agreed.
a good point.
Yes.
That's a very good point.
So what is an assault? So the final one. Assault is defined for student discipline purposes as intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly causing bodily injury to another. So Bridget grabbed Kendall by her hair as she walked by in the hallway, pulled her to the ground, and began punching her. And that's an assault. And I would say the majority of the time a district attorney would take charges on that, depending on.
Well, and again, I mean, not to mull this over, but that assault, and then that person turns around and defends themselves, and then now the legal term of it takes place, and now that kid is in trouble, you know, so just.
Well, not
necessarily.
necessarily.
Well,
Not necessarily.
well.
I mean, at that point,
Depends on the circumstance.
yes. Yes.
Depends
I
on
get
what
it.
they did.
Yes.
I get it.
And it's not,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be, I mean, they got knocked down and. I would just say respectfully, no, it does, it depends on
I
the
get it.
circumstance. We find
Provocation,
self-defense on multiple
retaliation,
occasions.
those types of things would play in.
Yeah. Right.
So I'd like to kind of like conclude. One way to look at it, I think that's important, is we use a tiered system of approach. So just like in academics, if we have good classroom management skills, if our schools are managed well, positive culture, 90% of our students will follow the rules and they'll comply. Even when we have those structures in place, 5 to 7% will have disruptions and incidences and problems. And when that happens, we have more supports and more resources dedicated to those students. And then we have 1 to 3% who are chronic offenders who consistently get in trouble due to various circumstances. And so when we have that tier 3 level of discipline, that's where we have committees and teachers coming together, counselors coming together, and providing all of our resources to try to correct that behavior. And so, but I think the positive note is that about 90% of our students, when we have right structures in place, they'll do what they need to do behavior-wise. Okay, any other comments?
I think we would be remiss if we did not actually mention the code of conduct during this code of conduct presentation. So as I read the code of conduct, it seems that everything that would be determined as bullying is level 3, which is serious and something. Or if it escalates beyond that into fights or retaliation, then it moves to level 4. So the consequences are quite severe regardless of where you fall, right? There is no such thing
Yes,
as
sir.
level 1 or 2 bullying.
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
All right.
No, sir. Now, I will say, if you read all the way through, we do have to, at our elementary level, no
Yeah.
child below 3rd grade can
Right.
be suspended. So we have to, but at that level 2,
But
we are
still,
trying to do restorative discipline practices so
But
that
it's
we
the
are.
closest thing we have to level 3 allowed by law.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I just
Thank-
wanted to reiterate that
Yeah,
because
no.
when you're looking at consequences, I always
Right.
have to remind that the law states under grade level 3.
Right.
So.
And looking at the big picture, I just want to say, I'm pretty sure that about 90% of the students act right.
Yes, sir.
90% of them
You are
act
very
right.
correct.
It's only
Yes,
the
sir.
top, the 10 that,
10%.
you know, so.
10%.
I had a very wise assistant band director one time. He looked at me and said, 5% of these kids take up 95% of our time. And I think that's true in AP world and discipline
Yes, sir.
too.
I graduated a class of 600. I can assure you I
Yep.
could name to this day the 60 kids that frequented my office. I can tell you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Don't be fighting, Kendall. Kendall, don't be fighting.
I know. I keep getting.
Yeah. We got your discipline record from when you were in school. We know better. I'm messing with
you. Student advocacy and strategic plan. You're up.
Yes. All right.
A
Good
whole new
evening.
group.
Let me.
Oh,
Yeah.
not a whole new group. A
Stay
different
seated.
group.
Yeah. So, good evening. We're here today to talk about the strategic plan and the student advocacy committee. I have, and this will make more sense as we go through the presentation, but I have a representative from each primary strategic plan goal to discuss, the celebrations and the action steps and focus areas within each goal of the strategic plan. Okay, so getting started. You got it? Okay, thank you. So the purpose of this presentation is to provide an end-of-the-year update on strategic plan goals in progress, and then next steps going into next school year, and then provide an update on our student advocacy goals. So just some background on the strategic plan. The Goose Creek strategic plan identifies the primary goals for our district. The strategic plan is a living document. It's monitored by the strategic plan action team. The action team meets quarterly to review actions, provide input on district initiatives, and then the student advocacy plan was integrated into the strategic plan this school year. So our strategic plan has 5 overarching goals: academic performance, community engagement, organizational development, operational excellence, and financial stewardship. And within each of those goals, there are targets, metrics and measures, and then also some key items that we use to evaluate the effectiveness of all of our overarching strategic plan goals. So what we're going to do today is each individual and everyone at this table serves on the strategic plan action team, along with teachers, other administrators, principals, assistant principals, counselors. They each are going to go through and talk about celebrations within the strategic plan, as well as areas of focus, next steps, and then also any additions to the strategic plan for us to make adjustments in terms of what we're monitoring to meet our goals or what we've added within the strategic plan.
Okay, good evening. We're gonna start off with the academic performance part of the strategic plan first. First, we're going to go over some celebrations, and one of the things that we as a district can really celebrate, we do a great job with, is CCMR, our college, career, and military readiness. This past year, we're predicted to be at 94%. 94% of our seniors are college ready or career ready. Compared to last year, that's about 12% above the state. So we are double digits above the state average on that. That is something that our district is doing really, really well. Our academic deans at the school do a great job monitoring that. Our principals, especially our college and career counselors, they have a spreadsheet. They are tracking that. They're calling those kids in. They do a great job with that. So tremendous celebration.
I believe that number.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yep.
With all the scholarship money and everything.
We're getting into that.
Okay. Take it easy.
Come on.
No, I just reflected back when they're announcing how much, during graduate, how much money
You're exactly right.
all of that, and I'm thinking,
Yep.
that sounds about right.
Yeah. Second thing we want to bring out as a recognition is the dual credit, and I know y'all are very aware of this. We have 2,288 students taking at least one dual credit course. That's when you look at our high school population, that's almost 40% of our high school students taking at least one dual credit course. That's great celebration right there. And when you think about it, several of those high school students are taking 2, 3, 4, 5 courses. So we literally have thousands of dual credit seats that we're doing. We're trying to get that specific number. We're going to get that specific number to you. But that is a tremendous celebration that we're doing, some of the things that we're doing here is the dual credit. Our deputy superintendent has the number, 7,555 dual credit seats. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Mr. Renteria, as you mentioned, the scholarships is another great celebration. Last year, our senior class surpassed $20 million in scholarships. So we're very excited about how talented our seniors are. We believe that we have a part to play in that. We try to get them those scholarships, but of course there's a tremendously talented group of kids that we get to work with every day. So those are some of the celebrations, some of the focus areas. Our academic achievement, that's one of the core areas where we want to get better. We want to be at that state average or better. We know that the accountability is not measured by the state, but still it's a very important metric and it's a very important number for us to be at or even surpass, and that's going to be our goal. Writing across the curriculum is another focus area. When you look at, when you take the last STAR data and you remove that writing part and it's just the conventions, the reading and revising part of that STAR test, we were right there with the state average. What hurt us was the writing piece of that state average, the writing piece of the STAR. And so we're going to have a real focus on writing across the curriculum, getting science, social studies, elective teachers, getting everybody involved, doing PD on that so we can do as much writing and try to help that.
What about keyboarding? Because we have to type everything now.
Yes.
So how do you teach a third grader to type?
That's a good question.
You can just put that
Yes.
up there as the things we need to be thinking about.
Additions.
Yes. The technology piece is super important as well.
They can type with their thumbs.
Yeah.
They can.
Hey, the Columbus method. I still type like that. You
Do better than I do, I know that.
Phone typing does not necessarily translate into keyboard. It's like a piano. If you learn wrong, you're going to have problems throughout the rest of your life. So I think that actual keyboard skills are
No, that's a good point.
really the point.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have either one of them, so I'm in bad shape. I'm a finger.
Attendance was another focus area where we know if kids aren't coming to school, they're not learning. And we've kind of been stuck at 93%, and we want to do a better job with communicating with parents, really having those support meetings, eliminating any barriers that we can, and when it's necessary, holding those parents accountable also and bringing those letters that need to be brought home and making sure we're doing everything we can to get those kids on our campuses so we can teach them.
Can I tell you one thing that I appreciate that you all do is using Parent Square to let parents know when their kids are absent, and then to be able to submit a note if needed. Because I think sometimes, especially at the high school level, sometimes parents don't know that their kids are absent. And when Zoe was absent, I would get a notification within a couple hours. And sometimes I didn't realize that she wasn't at school or that she was late to school. And I'd be like, hey, what's going on? Why were you absent? Or why were you late to school today? Or whatever. So the district does a really good job of that.
And that's automated district-wide. It's pulled from, no one has to manage that. The system pulls absences and automatically sends those notices.
Yeah. Most parents really appreciate it. Some that it happens every day. They get they probably don't appreciate it as much.
Well, that's going to fall real good into the next part of community engagement, of knowing that part of kids being where they're supposed to be.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, so our next steps is going to be the focused professional development on curriculum utilizing the instructional framework. We really want to make sure we give them the good PD, that those teachers understand teacher clarity and learning intentions and success criteria, that they're teaching at the rigor that the test is assessing kids at. We're making sure all of that. We're coaching up our principals with Principals PLC. We are reviewing the district scope and sequence. So our C&I team is really looking at our curriculum and making sure that what's in our curriculum is being tested. We're not wasting time on different things, but we're really spending time. We got a viable, guaranteed curriculum that we use with fidelity. Right. So our next steps are the additions, monitoring comparative data to perform at or above the state average. That's that important metric that we were talking about. We really want to monitor that. Monitoring students at the meets level. As you know, there's an approaches level, meets level, and master's level. Approaches level, as you know, is passing, but we're getting away from that culture of being satisfied with approaches. We want all of our kids to be at meets or master's level. The state says if you're at the meets level, then you're going to be successful at the next grade level or college with just very little interventions. So that we're really focusing, and our teachers and faculty are focused on meets level percentages. And then the last thing we're going to do, we want to add the tracking of industry-based certifications. Mm-hmm. And that, you know what, that's another celebration. When you look at our IBC's industry-based certifications, when you compare ourselves to the state, we are double digits ahead. So our kids are walking away from Goose Creek career ready. So that was the academic performance portion of the.
Thank you, Kevin. So moving on to community engagement, some celebrations. First is social media engagement. So engagement is defined as positive interactions with social media. So you're commenting, you're liking, you're loving, you're sharing, you are engaging with our social media content. We're up by 12% this year, so that number continues to rise, and so we're very proud of that. In addition to that, our emergency and urgent response rates. So as soon as we have all facts of an emergency response, the metric there is that everyone is communicated with the board, our district leaders and parents within 15 minutes. And so we sit at 100% for this school year. And then in addition to that, Education Foundation dollars awarded in innovative teaching grants. So we awarded $231,000 in innovative teaching grants this school year. In addition to that, we have some focus areas. So we sent out a survey at the end of the year, and there's 2 questions on that survey that we really look at. And the first is parent satisfaction with school communication. So our parents are showing that they're satisfied with district communication, but school communication is an area that we need to work on. We sit at 83% satisfied, and our goal is to sit at 88% for this school year. So we're falling behind on that. I would say that we get a lot of complaints about a lot of communication and over communicating when kids are absent. And so we're working on different ways to remediate that and streamline some of the messaging that is sent out.
Can I ask a question about that?
Of course.
On Parent Square, I've heard, I've not experienced, but it's sometimes difficult to tell what's a district communique versus a campus one. Why would that be?
It shouldn't be. It's color coded. It directly says who it's from. But
give me the 2-sentence education so I'll know what to tell folks to tell me.
So can I tell you just as a parent?
Yes.
Like at the very beginning, it'll say RSS or it'll say GCC ISD.
Perfect. And then color coded.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you asked that question, because when you look at next steps, our next step is to continue to train staff and parents on Parent Square. And so this is our first year of rolling out Parent Square. There's still a lot of training that needs to go on with our parents, with our teachers, with our administrators. And our school board on what you can do, how you can receive messages, what that can look like for you as a parent, and how you can operate that as a district employee. And so we'll continue to train and roll out different ways of communicating with our families. In addition to that, we sat at 80% of our parents were satisfied with the effectiveness of school websites. When you look, and we want to be at 87%. That was our goal for this year. So we're falling behind in that area as well. I will say that 2 years ago, we did a website redesign, and we were very hands-on with our campus webmasters in terms of doing a lot of campus website audits. Once we got our websites redesigned and where they need to be, we backed off of campus websites and monitoring that. That was obviously a mistake going into this school year, and so we are re-implementing campus website audits for next school year. Additions to the strategic plan is tracking the percentage of staff participating on the Get on the Bus campaign. We know it's important for our staff to understand what the Education Foundation does for our district, and so we want to add that and have specific measures in place to ensure that our staff knows the impact that Education Foundation can have on our students and on their classrooms.
On your thing about Get on the Bus campaign, is that for just one particular thing, or do we, and I've been saying this for years, do we ever have a program, you know how we used to do in the summertime, where we try to get kids that didn't finish all their credits and everything, we try to bring them back. But the other step was I had kept telling them that we need to have new teachers who are not familiar with who they're going to be teaching or whatever, put them in buses and take them through all the neighborhoods where they're going to be teaching kids, so they kind of have a better understanding of where a lot of these kids are coming from. So the first time they hear a kid say MF in the classroom, they won't be going into super shock, and they would understand better about what kind of kids they're dealing with. And that's the thing I was talking about, community engagement.
Sure.
And that's just me.
Well, and I will say on our last slide, we talk about student advocacy, and some of that is going to be brought up when it comes to training teachers and our staff. So I will circle back to that. Get on the Bus is the marketing campaign for our teachers being involved with the Education Foundation.
Right, yeah.
But I think I'm going to hit on what you're talking about when it comes to training our staff members about backgrounds of our students here in a couple slides.
Thank you.
Just really quickly about Parent Square again. I just looked back, and the ones from the district say GCCISD, the ones from Sterling had someone's name on it. Who sent
Their
it?
teacher,
yes.
yeah.
Yes, or the counselor or the AP or whoever it was. It had their name on it. So.
Okay, the third goal deals with organizational development, developing an organization of excellence. And so in similar pattern, our celebrations, first of all, we have student teachers, our student interns, who we partner with several universities, such as UHCL or Lamar, and we have several other partnerships as well. And out of our student interns, 21 this year, student intern for us, and then we're signed on as teachers for the next school year, for the 24-25 school year. And so that's a good recruitment tool. They student taught in Goose Creek. They liked it enough to stay and to start their teaching journey with us. And so that's one celebration. Another celebration is each year, at the end of the year, we do an employee satisfaction survey. We ask our teachers several questions, and 87% of our teachers responded that Goose Creek is a great place to work. And so while we have room to improve on that, of course, we want to be in the 90s. Given some of the challenges that we faced over the last few years in public education, we feel that we're doing all we can to provide that positive culture. So we count that as a win. And then also total compensation and bonus offerings. I know the board and the district has worked hard despite financial challenges that we faced, especially this year and last year, to be competitive with our teacher salary. And so the fact that we're offering a 4% raise, the board approved a sign-on bonus worth $2,500 over a 2-year period. We're a TIA district, and so we're feeling like that will be an attraction mode as well. And so we consider these celebrations on what we offer, as well as other compensation perks that we have in the district, such as our fitness center, our wellness clinic, and that sort of thing. Focus areas, we listed 2 here. So one is our administrator development pipeline. We want to make sure that we're doing a good job of growing leaders. And so we have a portrait of a leader that we use in our strategic plan, and we have several programs that our AEDs facilitate that help grow our leaders. If you're a teacher who wants to become an administrator, we have a pathway to do that. And so we want to make sure that we strengthen that pathway so that we recruit leaders and administrators who are homegrown. Our biggest focus area is employee retention, specifically teacher retention. And so we know that in light of the nationwide teacher shortage and the state teacher shortage, that Goose Creek is experiencing some of those hits. And so we want to make a concerted effort to focus on our teacher retention. We looked at our retention rate, and it's dropped a little bit from this year to last year. Well, I guess from 2 years ago to last year, because it's 1 year behind by about 5%. And the state has also dropped about 5%. But we want to do all we can to retain our teachers. It's when we have highly qualified teachers who stay with us for the long run, that's in the best interest of students. And so we will form a retention committee this year, comprised of teachers who have been with the district for several years, to really focus on what are some things that we can do to make sure that our teachers feel valued, our staff feels loyal to the district, that we develop trust, and that there's is there anything out of the box that we can do to make sure that this is a place that not only that they want to start their career, but also they want to stay here and finish their career in Goose Creek. So that's going to be a very strong effort with human resources on retention. The one thing that we will be adding is tracking the certification status of uncertified teachers. We already do this, but we're going to add this to the strategic plan. We know, again, due to teacher shortage challenges that most districts in our area and in the state are having to hire teachers who are not certified. They're going through their certification process, but they don't have their statement of eligibility yet. And so we're going to do we already have someone devoted to working with those teachers to get them certified, and we're going to start tracking this data a little bit closer to make sure that we can do all we can to get our teachers certified. Okay.
Good evening. Operational excellence. The title states itself. Our celebrations in the operational area are decreases in safety and security incidents. That's fantastic. We're decreasing the amount of safety issues and security issues. We're decreasing in the maintenance costs per students. That's outstanding from last year. Decreasing in some areas is fantastic, but also increasing in some areas are fantastic. So we're going to celebrate our increase in cybersecurity defense, as well as an increase in safety and security training that we're doing not only within our district, but we invite other districts in to partake with us. That moves us into our focus areas. Our work order completion within 0 to 15 days. We want to continue to become more effective and efficient in those areas. And that will lead us over to our next steps. We will effectively restructure job roles in the maintenance department to meet those needs so we can become more effective. We're going to utilize the long-range facility plan to prioritize maintenance projects. That's going to help us to become better, more effective, and more efficient. The additions include the findings from the long-range facility plan into our strategic plan. Once we incorporate those two, we feel that operations services will truly move towards becoming operational excellence.
All right, good evening. So now we'll talk about financial stewardship. Some of the celebrations in the finance department that we would like to talk about would be our AAA bond rating, which is essentially our credit rating for the district, and it allows us to have the best interest rates whenever we're issuing our bonds. Also increasing the operating fund balance for general fund. We've been able to keep that above $100 million. We have more reserves than we're actually required to. We're required to have 3 months reserve. We have about over 5. And that is also something you want to have in the event of an emergency, such as a hurricane or, financial calamity, or some little thing called COVID. Yeah. We don't want to say the H word right now, but it's looking kind of angry out there.
I'll give it to come in.
But, you always want to have those reserves, especially due to our proximity to the coast.
What's the minimum, again? Remind me.
3 months, and we have over 5. So
In terms of numbers, how much is it?
We have over $100 million.
No, but for the 3 months.
3 months. 3 months operating cost is about 60 something, maybe 70, depending on the budget. Yeah. So
how would this be affected when the state gives us our money that we're supposed to be allotted?
It doesn't affect the fund balance per se. It pays for operations. So teacher salaries, anything classroom, that's the largest expense of all. It's over half of our budget, just Function 11. And payroll altogether is over 80% of the budget. So, and then you've got utilities and maintenance next. And then
do we have a number for how much the state is supposed to give to us?
Per student, they give us $61.60.
Yeah, but the overall number.
The overall number, it's about $100 million right now after they passed the tax compression last session. Yeah, so it's the local share's gone down a little bit, but it's creeping back up again. So. Also, our financial integrity rating system of Texas score, it's much like the academic score. It's our financial score. Also, like the academics ratings, they are making it more stringent to make others fall out of the superior category, which we have enjoyed for a couple of decades now. The focus areas obviously is going to be the budget deficit. In the environment that we're in right now, we have not had an increase in basic allotment since 2019, and so we're struggling, as all districts are across the state, to maintain the level of excellence that we do in academics and finance with less money, basically, because our money's worth less now than it was.
We did good coming out of it in the budget session.
Yeah, we've really worked hard. We've worked really hard to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible, and we've really done that. So, is there more work to be done? Yes. So, next steps, of course, continue to work to adopt a balanced budget for next time. Budget planning and preparation has become a year-round process now. So, we don't ever get to finish. We just end one and we start another one. So,
you think that's going to be possible to balance the budget next time?
I think we can do it. Yeah,
I'm not saying are we hopeful. Number-wise, do you think we'll be able to balance the budget?
We can. Yes, we can. We can. Will it be easy? It will not. Will there have to be tough decisions if we don't get increased funding from the legislature? You bet. So, but can it be done? 100%. And then again, we also need to educate the community and staff about how school finance works. And it's a very complex topic, and it's, trying to simplify that is not easy to do. But we want to try to give the message to the community on how it works, at least in a simplified form where the public can understand. And then additions this year, we had a budget deficit tracker that we utilized where we could see our progress at any point during budget planning and preparation to see where we were with the deficit. So, and we just continue to improve.
On the deficit, we're at about $2 million?
Just under.
Okay.
Yes, sir. About 1.8.
That sounds doable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Definitely. Worked very hard.
Thank you, Bridget. Okay, so moving into student advocacy goals. Celebrations, the first is recruitment and retention of diverse talent. So this goal consists of, ideally you would, as much as possible, match your teaching population to your student population. And so currently, our African American teaching population matches our student population. Where we're off pretty drastically is our Hispanic student population compared to our Hispanic teaching population. However, even though Dr. Bollinger mentioned how hard it is to recruit and retain staff, our Hispanic teaching population is up this year by 5%. So we consider that a celebration, even though there's a lot of work to do. In addition to that, we have continued culturally relevant classroom professional development. So 2 years ago, we trained every single teacher on culturally relevant classrooms. We've continued to have culturally relevant classroom training at new teacher orientation. Last year, we offered 12 Giant Con sessions on continuing that work, and we are going to do so again at Giant Con this upcoming year. And that training is done by current sitting classroom teachers. In addition to that, we've talked a lot in the Code of Conduct presentation about student survey and roundtable discussions. And so that was actually initiated by the student advocacy goals, was to truly determine the state of the student at our district as well as our campuses. And so we do give a culture and climate survey to every 3rd through 12th grader. We utilize that data in our campuses as well as at the district level in the anti-bullying committees, at principal meeting, at our district administrators meeting to really make informed decisions based on student data.
I'll put a pin there for me, Kendall.
Sure.
One of the things I want to say in that with student advocacy and what you were just speaking upon, do we ever pick a few students and look upon their improvements and collect that as what you were speaking of? Do we, not only just with the group of students, but are those students also looked at as far as when the surveys are given, do we look at their improvements and how they're looking at academically across the whole student? Or we're looking at that?
Not specifically for individual, like a focus group of students. However, we do compare survey data. This is our 3rd year to give this same culture and climate survey. So we'll look, what areas are we improving? And that's actually monitored in the strategic plan. Where are we stagnant? And what continues to be a need for our district. And so we'll have those targeted discussions with not only our campuses, but with our district as a whole.
But more specifically, the student performance, not the social emotional, but the performance is measured, and it'll be in the taper report here in a couple of months by Ms. Jackson.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. And then in addition to that, literature curation across our campuses, ensuring that we have diverse, rigorous text accessible to all students. So not just diverse, but also meeting the rigor level of all of our students in our classrooms and in our libraries. Also, the community engagement team, we partnered with the bilingual department for Spanish outreach initiative this year. We had a lot of success. We have now a all Spanish podcast. We also piloted campuses to host Spanish-only meetings. And so we're taking that model and extending it to other campuses, as well as a Dia del Nino event where we had over 1,500 individuals attend. It was incredible, and we got a lot of really great feedback for that process. So what are some areas that we need to focus on? A lot of this work and a lot of the conversation that has come out with student advocacy has happened in the anti-bullying committees. We discussed the Socratic seminar and taking that back. The data that is analyzed in anti-bullying committees at the district and campus level is really valuable. So just ensuring that those committees are using that data to make informed decisions and change behavior on campuses. And as well as really looking at, and we touched on this as well in the previous presentation, on strengthening support with repeat discipline offenders, especially if they're students of color. So working on tracking different groups and making adjustments based on our repeat offenders and providing them support holistically, not just a offense and consequence, but really digging down through our student support teams to provide support for those students. And that touches on you, Mr. Sampson, talking about understanding the students that we're teaching in our different campuses, and that's what we're hitting on when we talk about that focus area. So next steps for student advocacy, we are currently going through a review and revision of curriculum to, again, ensure that diverse learners have access to the same diverse and rigorous text as peers across the board, as well as, again, utilizing data of repeat offenders to develop those student support plans to ensure that we're meeting the needs of all students.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to stop right there. That's twice you've mentioned literature curation and text, rigorous text, diverse, etc. How often are we going outside of state-adopted text to accomplish that? Because I can't imagine every subject on all grade levels having choices that are as diverse as our population.
So
they're writing a lot better textbooks than they did 10 years ago.
Sure.
One or the other.
Well, there's two different sections here. The first is just when you talk at accessibility when it comes to student choice. And so if I'm a student that's looking for a specific text, do I have access to that text? The second, and really refers to next steps, and I'm going to lean on CNI because this is really out of a new element to a House bill. Susan, can you help me? Thank you.
High quality, yeah, yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And last, in terms of additions and...
Hold on, before you move on, I got one thing. On the focus areas, you didn't mention anything about the police roles in that. Is there any roles that they will play, the police, in this area?
In terms of focus areas for student advocacy?
For this focus areas of bullying and all that other stuff.
We currently don't measure that in the strategic plan, and we may need to look at that, monitoring different incidents. I will say for when you start to look at operational excellence, we do monitor 4 PEMS codes that really directly align to offenses that would be considered necessary for violent and necessary to involve the police department, firearms, illegal knives, assault, terroristic threats. So it is monitored in that aspect.
I just didn't see nothing on there. That's why I asked.
Yeah, it is monitored in the strategic plan.
Gotcha. Oh, right. Yeah, you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. As far as additions in terms of the student advocacy plan, Mr. Foxworth mentioned the instructional framework, and that was developed at the beginning of this year to really give a clear framework of how we deliver instruction in Goose Creek CISD. That document doesn't just have to do with student advocacy. It has to do with a lot of different elements of instruction delivery, but embedded in that is equitable learning environment. And so that was added as a whole to the strategic plan as well. Okay, so what are next steps? Each year, we evaluate our strategic plan action committee. We recruit and establish a team for next school year. So as people retire or roll off or enter different roles, we always want to make sure that all of our goals are represented. If any board members want to serve on the strategic action team, please reach out to me. We'd love to have you. But we build that, and our first meeting is typically in September. And in the September meeting, we review all of the end-of-year metrics, and we adjust any of our goals set for the next year to either increase or be reflective of the district needs. So we'll take all of the end-of-year metrics and really look at what's a good goal to set for next year so that teams are consistently improving. And then the strategic plan is really designed to be a 5-year plan. Yes, it is a living document, but things drastically change. We've mentioned multiple different House bills, multiple different changes in accountability in our budget situation. And so coming up this school year, we'll really look at a 2025 to 2030 plan and doing a true evaluation of our current strategic plan and revamping that strategic plan to make sure that it's applicable for Goose Creek CISD. And I think just to finish, the benefit of having a strategic plan is really to articulate very clear goals for our district. In addition to that, the action team does a great job at monitoring, entering metrics, and really evaluating where we need to improve. And so it's just been a great benefit to look at over 5 years. What have we monitored? Where have we improved? Where do we need to continue to work? And it's a really great document to help gauge success and set goals for different departments.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
And we all may already have this. I know the colleges have it where they have classes where Spanish speaking, and they teaching them English. Do we have something in the district of that nature where I know we have ESL for kids and everything, but does that come over to actually the parents being able to learn the same thing that the kids are learning? I'm just curious because it probably would help more at home if both, parents and the kids are learning to speak English and vice versa. I mean, I'm just curious.
I know we have a set of resources. Yes. Sure, yeah.
Okay. Right. Right. Okay. Yeah.
When you say they bring the grant back, who are you talking about?
The Workforce Commission.
Okay. Okay.
The other place it's used is in our transportation department. I think Mr. Walterscheid puts together an adult ESL program similar to a GED program.
Huh. So, do they have the reverse of that? If you speak English and want to learn Spanish? Well, I know that, but I mean, hey, ain't no harm in asking.
Thank you all very much. Great
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you.
We do have one final superintendent's report this evening. No one's won the trophy yet. Let's see if ABM update on efficiency wins it.
You don't get to vote.
I'll vote for you.
Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening once again. I'm Anthony Price. I have with me my Director of Maintenance, Mr. Michael Rasmussen, and we have joining with us from ABM, he's the M&V Manager, Brian Walker.
So thank you for the opportunity for us to present. This is the year 2 findings. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present. This is the year 2 findings from the ABM project that began in 2019. And so we've got great results to share, and we continue to reap the benefit of the savings of the project. At this time, Mr. Walker is going to take over.
Yes, again, my name is Brian Walker. I'm the Measurement and Verification Manager from ABM, and I've been on this project pretty much since the beginning here. I came last year to discuss the results, and we had good news last year where we exceeded by over $30,000 over our guarantee last year, and we have much of the same. I will just quickly discuss the year 2 results for you here tonight. There you go. And so as you can see here, our year 2 projection is that we saved $1.118 million in energy savings. And then also there were an additional nearly $1 million in operational savings associated with things like replacing the fields and that type of item. And so this year we've realized 1.15 million of those savings. So again, we exceeded by just over 36,000 this year. And through year 2, over 1.5 million to date. So looking at this slide, and I showed this last year, this is again where the savings came from: lighting, water conservation, our turf fields, an item we did on the cooling towers that helped with the treatment costs there, and then also power factor correction. I addressed this last year as well, but I've been fortunate to work with Mr. Rasmussen, and he's helped us to keep on top of these items here. But we are on track, as you can tell, by the overall savings here. But those are the items that we are working closely together to monitor. And this is just a slide that's an equivalent greenhouse gas reduction. But overall, good news, good project. I have a great advocate here with Mr. Rasmussen to help out here. Year 3 will be done in August, and it's showing to be on track, maybe plus or minus 10% of that number that I just showed you for year 2. And that is all.
Does anyone have any questions?
So we're no longer watering the turf fields then. That's what I got out of that, right?
But how often
Thank
do we
you,
have
Mr.
to,
Walker.
How often do we have to wash them? We started with you guys in 2019, and how long is our partnership? How often do we have to renew, et cetera?
So we had made an agreement at the initial time to do a 5 years worth of M&V reviews.
We're getting close to re-up time. Okay. I think Mr. Sampson and I were the only ones here in 2019. So, yeah, y'all have something to look forward to because these guys are great.
We're on track. We've consistently seen the savings, and it's been a great benefit to our students as well as to our financial bottom line.
Yep. And another way to address the deficit budget.
Yes. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. O'Brien, we are down to action items, the consideration of consent agenda.
Yes, Madam President, we'll go through the action items that the administration is recommending for approval this evening. Action item 9A1 is ABM Project Year 2 Measurement and Verification Report as presented. Number 2, proposed 24-25 Student Code of Conduct. Number 3, establish non-business days in accordance with House Bill 3033, 88th Texas Legislature in 2023. Number 4, Board Policy EIC Local Academic Achievement Class Ranking Update. Number 5, renewal of commercial property, windstorm, flood, earth movement, mechanical breakdown, terrorism, crime, storage tank pollution coverage, insurance coverage that is, for Goose Creek CISD. Number 6, third option to extend the CSP for technology equipment, supplies, and related services. Number 7, award for CSP clinical services at the district's wellness facility. Number 8, consideration of conveyance of 3 tracts of land along Market Street to the city of Baytown pursuant to section 272.001 of the Texas Local Government Code. Number 9, consideration of conveyance of a 10-foot wide force main easement pursuant to section 272.001 of the Texas Local Government Code. Number 10, tax refunds. Administration recommends approval of these consent agenda items.
Okay. Is there anything that needs to be pulled for separate consideration? Okay.
We may be able to answer that question so that it can be voted on together. Ms. Smith?
Do we have any artificial intelligence assignments that are assigned to the students to use that as a tool?
GPT, I think. We're not anti-artificial intelligence, let me just say. It has become more regulated by the higher education department. We're not opposed to AI. We just believe that the academic honesty needs to be a part of that. So it could be subject to a teacher assigning an AI assignment using usually GPT.
Right. I would just, I guess, caution the use of the calculator simile there, because the entire point of an essay, it's Latin and it means to try. So the reason why we do that is to work through our own thoughts, and it helps us become lifelong learners. It helps us think about the way we to even think about our own thoughts, even our points. We use it to back up our own points and what we say. So we need to make sure that we are very specific about where we can and cannot use AI. And I would. Okay, great.
And also, you can determine if something's AI originated or not.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Are you finished with that? I have a question, or maybe I've noticed that a lot, besides the AI stuff, a lot of it was just grammar corrections. But on page 26, it says no later than the third class day after the day on which the student is removed. And it's third class, like third dash class.
So we
it's
have
just
a grammatical,
typo. It's
yeah, we
just
have
a grammatical issue. But it.
It's an AI typo.
Yeah. Yes. But do we need to still keep that as a separate thing so we can say we approve it with the correction, or could we? The corrected. Okay.
Yes.
It can still go under.
And proceed.
Okay. Because it for some reason it corrected the correct grammar to the incorrect grammar. So I don't know. So okay.
And that's why we shouldn't use AI all the time.
Yes. Actually.
I didn't catch that. I missed that. I missed it.
Okay.
I'm sorry, one more point about the AI thing. AI, it uses other works to generate its content. So AI itself is plagiarism because it doesn't cite where it gets this agriculture of information to use on your paper. So I think that it's specifically apropos that it's in the academic dishonesty portion, because AI in itself is a type of plagiarism. So we just need to be extra cautious as a school district to make sure that we do have artificial intelligence in our academic dishonesty rules and procedures.
We concur.
Yeah.
Question about 9A8 and 9A9, the conveyance of 3 tracts of land. Are they buying that, or?
Mr. Benoit is here this evening to be able to answer that for us. It's part of the beautification of Old Baytown, as I understand it, Market Street. But thank y'all for being here this evening to answer those questions for Mr. Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. So there are 2 different components that are on your agenda. The first 3 are related to small tracts along Market Street.
Right.
Those are all being purchased for fair market value, and there have been appraisals attained to support the consideration that's being given by the city to the school district. The second item is related to Harlem Elementary. There's a 10-foot strip along the front, the I-10 frontage. Again, we've received an appraisal for that property as well, And the city is buying that for the fair market value as well.
But on that one, on that appraisal, with that being part of the district, but because of that of being frontage road with I-10, I didn't see in the survey or anything where it was discussed with the state, because that's part of the state highway.
So our ownership is solidified right there. It's not subject to the state easement.
Oh, okay.
And it is along the frontage, but they have, part of the agreement is that they will not use the surface or disturb the surface. So they're going to go, hollow under our driveways, so there won't be any impact on our improvements at Harlem.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. Two things. Where was the part on Market Street, and where was the part on the easement?
So, go ahead.
For the part for Market Street, it does say 3 tracts, but it's 3 very small tracts of land.
Okay.
2 of them are at the corner of Earhart and Market,
Okay.
and then the third one is near our new entrance into the campus.
Oh, okay, okay. Now, the 10-foot wide Force Main easement, like Ms. Barat said, that if it's on the front part of where Harlem is, and it's not much there, but the feeder road and a ditch and the state right of way. So
we're inside of that.
Inside.
We're in the fee ownership that the school district owns. We're on the school campus side of the state right of way and those ditches.
Okay.
And it's only 10 feet wide.
So where you where the parking lot is?
No. Right at the border of our property line.
Let me see.
Okay, so
yeah, I was.
The appraisal is
$9,700. Yeah.
And the agreement's nowhere near that amount.
We do have Ms. Kim Patterson from the city of Baytown here with us as well this evening. Welcome, Ms. Patterson. This is, as I understand it, going back to the Market Street, is the installation of 2 roundabouts. And the roundabouts are designed to improve traffic flow in that area and actually removing the 2 lights that are there in those places. So with the roundabouts, they'll have immediate access to enter into the circumference and without.
I was on Harlem.
Right. So as to your question,
but I don't like roundabouts. But that's just me. But I do enjoy the Band-Aids that are on Sam Houston right now.
So the appraisal was for a fee simple ownership. If they were to condemn the fee simple ownership, which means they own it outright, they are just condemning a subsurface easement, and so there's an adjustment to the fair market value that takes place when that happens.
So basically, they're going to put some culverts in or something, and we're never going to notice it.
They're not even putting culverts in. They're just putting a pipe under the ground, and that's going to be it.
All right. Cool.
So I can help clarify that too as well. So what we're doing is we're horizontal hydraulic drilling. So we're boring 30 feet subsurface. You'll never know that it's there. Our boring pit is actually further down I-10. So straight across, including the Lee College site next door. It's the same exact process. So you'll never know that it happens, and it'll be a fairly quick process.
But it would prohibit us from drilling for oil right there on that particular site in the future.
Yes, that and other things.
So
I don't think we're supposed to do that
How deep
anyway.
are y'all going?
30 feet subsurface.
Okay, so it's below the sewer line and everything.
Yes, so this will be a new force main easement to connect to the upsizing that we're doing on the I-10 lift station to support the development in the area.
Okay, so y'all going east and west?
Yes, and we're also then going across I-10.
Okay.
Yeah, and
to get on the other side, to put maintenance for the property that's over there, so somebody can build, and you'll see a sign saying this is city of Baytown.
And we'll have to build more schools.
And something else, and another warehouse, and and another, okay.
And when will it happen, and is it going to disrupt school traffic?
So it shouldn't disrupt school traffic, given where our boring site is in that area. You honestly shouldn't know a difference. Right now, we're slated to begin construction as long as all the acquisition goes well. There's 40 total tracks that we're acquiring as part of this. Yes, 40 total easements. And so all up and down I-10. I promise you're not singled out. But as long as that continues to go smoothly, our plan is to go into bidding in Q2 and have construction start next July.
Okay. So, yeah, I know. So, are y'all going east on I-10 and under?
Yes. So the lift station that we're talking about here is on the new
north,
Black Bear Diner. It's two pad sites down from there.
I know where that is.
Yeah, so we're going across.
From there?
No, we're going straight down and then we're going across.
Oh, okay. So you're going toward the school, then?
Yes, then across.
Over where the pond and all the work is being done?
Yes, so where it dead ends right there, we're then going across I-10.
Okay. All right, well.
Okay. Is there any other questions I can help address for this or the Market Street?
I was curious.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson.
All
Mr.
right.
Benoit.
Any other questions about any of the consent agenda items? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I would like to move we approve the consent agenda items as presented and discussed.
Thank you. Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Clem, a second by Mrs. Barat-Timms. Any further discussion? And with no further discussion, all in favor, raise your hand. We have 7-4, 0 against. Motion passes. Future board agenda items? Do we have any future board agenda items?
We've got a few more items that will be coming up as superintendent reports that were board requested previously.
Okay. And I know it's not even out yet, but maybe sometime in like August, September, we can get an update on AP scores. And then that's the only thing I think that I can think of. Anything else coming up? Okay. Board training. We all just finished a bunch of board training recently. I don't think we have any coming soon. September.
Last 3 days, yep.
Yes. And then our next regular board meeting.
Dallas? San Antonio. This year. Right back where we were. Close enough. He said Dallas.
Okay, our next regular board meeting is, let me look at my calendar. August 5th, you said? August 5th.
August the 5th?
Okay. Yes, sir. Okay.
Don't forget July 7th. Very important day. All right, good.
It's Mr. Sampson's birthday.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Now the board will recess into another closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Section 551.071, 074, 076, 082, and I think that's it. No action will be taken while the board is in closed meeting. And it is 8:54. We'll reconvene into open session now. It is 12:38 a.m. I don't even know. I do not know what day it is.
Thank you, Madam President. As we move on to consideration of personnel, administration recommends the approval of elections and the acceptance of resignation and retirements as presented.
I move to approve.
A second.
I have a motion by Mr. Clem, a second by Mrs. Barat-Timms. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. We have 7 for, 0 against. Motion passes.
Give me one moment, please. Administration brings before the board for consideration the approval of student support administrators Lauren Blair Eubank to Travis Elementary and Jaylene Lemus to Alamo Elementary.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Campisi, a second by Mrs. Barat-Timms. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. We have 7 for, 0 against. Motion passes.
We have administrative recommendation for counselors at Bowie Elementary, Georgina Hullum, and Alamo Elementary, Jennifer Plunkett.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Clem, a second by Mr. Campisi. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. We have 7 for, 0 against. Motion passes.
We have an administrative recommendation to approve the Early Learning Academy Dean, Marissa Phillips, at Pumphrey Elementary.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Renteria, second by Mrs. Barat-Timms. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. We have 7 for, 0 against. Motion passes.
Administration recommends selection of student wellness interventionist LaPorche Gillum
So moved
at
to
Impact.
So move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Barat-Timms, and I missed who had the second. Oh,
Mr. Renteria.
Mr. Renteria, second by Mr. Renteria. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. 7 for, 0 against. Motion passes.
Administration recommends the selection of a diagnostician, Erica Salas, and Amanda Fiedler.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Renteria, second by Mr. Campisi. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. We have 7 for, 0 against. Motion passes.
That concludes administration's recommendations for personnel.
And now we will consider and take action regarding superintendent evaluation, amendment to superintendent contract, and related action.
Ms. Guy, I move that the board approve the superintendent's evaluation and amend the superintendent's contract as discussed in executive session.
I second.
I have a motion by Mr. Clem, a second by Mr. Martinez. Is there any discussion?
Yes. Hate to be the one to do this, but last November we gave Randy $6,900 to his TRS raise, and that is a continual thing. It's a permanent thing on top of the stipend he got with the administrators. And now we're going to give him another compensation, a 4% raise. With that $6,900 continue to be a permanent raise towards his TRS. I don't feel like I can vote for that, considering he got the stipend with the administrators, and then he got the TRS raise in November, and it's permanent, and now we're going to give him another 4%. So, and with the budget being tight, with the economy being tight, as Randy as a superintendent, he needs to set the precedence as far as, or we need to help him set the precedence of, budgets are being cut. We lost many positions this year in this budget. We moved money from the capital project fund to almost balance the budget. We still got a $2 million shortfall. And we paid $190,000 for a consultant, and here we're throwing, another raise at Randy, and I just can't. I can't see it, and I don't think that it's right. I like Randy. He does a great job, but because of the times, the financial hard times that we're in, I have to hold him accountable to setting a precedence, or we should be doing that to make sure that he's setting the example that during hard times we live within our means and we do what we can. This is a little over the top, but so I'm going to vote against it.
Any further discussion?
Just one thing. I think that Mr. Renteria has his opinion. I got mine. But if we were going to not give everybody the same raise, then we should have never had a 4% raise. And no matter what we did last year and what we plan on doing this year, I still believe in our superintendent and the 4% raise that we all got, except us, So.
Well, we got it.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yeah, 4% of zeros.
Yeah, he can zero. But that's just my opinion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor, raise your hand. Anyone against? Opposed? So we have 6 for, 1 opposed. Motion passes. And at 12:45, we are going to adjourn the meeting.